Test. Check 1 2, check 1 2.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. It's an honor to be able to start Transit Commission meetings by recognizing OC Transpo employees who have gone above and beyond the call of duty to help others in need. Today, you'll hear two inspiring stories from months of August and September. This acknowledgement is part of our TransSecure program, which is a well-established community watch program on wheels. Cette reconnaissance s'inscrit dans le cadre du programme TransSecure, service mobile de surveillance communautaire bien implémenté. In the late night of August 14, bus operator Christian was driving Route 12 in the Jasmine Crescent area when he came across a passerby on the side of the road who was helping a male who had just been stabbed. Christian immediately stopped his bus and contacted the Transit Operations Control Center, who then contacted OPS and Emergency Medical Services. The passerby who was on scene then asked Christian if he had first aid kit on board his bus, which he did. Christian remained on scene to assist the passerby and the injured male until emergency services arrived. Once they arrived, Christian provided his statement and redirected passengers to another bus as the road was closed for the investigation. The male was then transported to hospital and very fortunately survived his injuries. On September 4, just before 8 p.m., bus operator Manuel was traveling down Montreal Road on Route 12 when he noticed a 2-year-old boy was by himself at the bus stop. With urgency, Manuel immediately stopped his bus to assist the child. Once the child was sheltered on the bus, Manuel contacted the Transit Operations Control Center, who dispatched special constables and contacted the Ottawa Police. When the police arrived shortly thereafter, they were able to reunite the child with his mother. I'm so very grateful that Christian and Manuel are both here today, and I'd like to invite them up to accept their certificates. Christian? Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Transit Commission meeting of the 21st of October, 2015. We do have quorum of the Commission. As we begin the meeting, are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we do have regrets from Commissioner Burt. Confirmation of the minutes from September 14, 2015, excuse me. Those are carried. Thank you. Item number 1, Office of the Auditor General report on audit follow-ups, detailed audit follow-up reports. Are there any questions or comments? Very quickly. Okay. Commissioner Cloutier, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. First of all, I, as a member of the Audit Committee, wanted to thank and congratulate OC Transpo for the implementation of the recommendations from the 2011 audit. Most have been implemented and very thorough, very thorough, and thank you. One of the recommendations for scheduling process for bus operators, and because it speaks to efficiency and labor costs, the HASTIS scheduling software, is that still in use, and is that and I'm referring to recommendation number 2. Could you just comment on that and how that recommendation is going?
Yes, the HASTIS software is still in use. As it relates to this audit in terms of automation of booking or subsets thereof, that's part of our IT upgrades that we're doing that's referred to in other parts of that audit and our responses to the Auditor General.
On the second audit, the audit of communication for canceled trips, no, I apologize, on the recommendations 6 and 8, it refers to, recommendation 6 referred to a 6-week scheduling process, that it should be adjusted or benchmarked to other transit commissions. And while I have the microphone, if you could speak to recommendation 8, as I don't believe it's been fully implemented, the automated alternative to the existing manual booking process.
Certainly. So I think if you read through the audit and certainly our management response, we have reminded everyone of the complexity of our booking process. It's one of the most complex in the transit industry. There is no true comparator. We do more interlining than most transit agencies do. So with respect to automation, I know everyone speaks to that, surely that must be done, easy to do. It's not. It's a complex booking process. But what we have done in our upgrades to our booking systems and HASTIS and all the other systems that feed into that, we've mapped that out in consultation with the union, with staff, every step, and we're certainly positioning the upgrades to be able to do that. We don't have the exact timelines as to when we can do that, but it is complex and we need to think through that. And so we're being very cautious in when providing exact dates as to when we can do that and what shape that will look like. We know the process, so that's been mapped out. We know automation can assist. What that's going to look like and how that's going to roll out, and the consultations that we need to have with our union partners and staff is complicated.
Thank you. And just one last question, Mr. Chair. On the communication of cancelled trips, recommendation number 3, upgrades to the computer system, just anticipating the December changes that you'll be discussing later in this committee meeting. We will have to ensure, as you've done in the past on June 28th, that cancelled trips or adjustments to scheduled are well communicated. Are you comfortable with the level of technology and the server, the upgrades to the computer systems to accommodate those changes that are coming?
So we've closed some of the gaps. There are still manual processes and sub-processes, as we put in our management response. Again, the new integrated upgrades on our computer systems, which we're aiming to do and complete by the end of 2017, so that we don't get into that complex environment of the Confederation line testing and commissioning, will be there. So it's much better than before, and we've closed some of the gaps that the Auditor General has identified. It is not fully automated. It will be, and that's part of the upgrades that we refer to in our management responses. The other piece on this is that we remind everyone that the last minute push that we do out to our customers is because we're trying to do everything possible to fill that canceled bus. So it's not because we don't want to communicate it. It's because we have, as I've said before, the highest standard in the bus industry in terms of automated bus cancellation, and so we're trying to fill that trip right to that last second if we can, and if we can't, then we push that message out.
Thank you very much, Commissioner or Councillor Cloutier. Are these reports received? Received. Thank you very much. Item number 2 is the delegation of authority reports. Are there any questions or comments relating to this? Seeing none, can this be received? Received. Thank you very much. We're going to hold number 3. There is a presentation. Number 4 is my report from the annual conference of CUDA. I was very honored to be voted to the National Transit Board while I was at the CUDA conference earlier this year. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has them. If not, is this received? Thank you very much. We'll go back to item number 3, and over to you, Mr. Manconi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just before I start item number 3, I'd like to introduce a new member to our senior management team. It's Mr. Jim Hopkins. He's to the left of me. He's our new Chief Safety Officer. You'll recall I sent out a memo a while ago that we did an extensive North American search. It took us a year to secure Mr. Hopkins. He's got 30 years of experience, a lot of rail experience. He was part of the Vancouver SkyTrain operation. He built this safety management system for that organization, and he was also there during the complicated logistics associated with the Olympics. He started on Monday, so he's got lots to do, and we're very happy to have him on board. I know our rail partners, Mr. Cripps, is excited that he's joined our team, and also our consortium is very excited to have him on our team. They know him from the industry. He is the president of the Canadian Society of Safety Engineering, so he's a top-notch professional, and very happy to have him on the senior management team that's sitting here with you today. Thank you. With respect to report number 3, there's 2 parts to this presentation. I'm going to ask Mr. Cripps to give you an overview of the construction-related activities that are linking up to these service adjustments. And then Mr. Scrimgeour is going to give you a presentation on how the service adjustments are going to be implemented, communicated, and shared with our customers. Mr. Scrimgeour's presentation is a lengthy one. There's a lot of detail to it. I remind everyone, as I mentioned in the technical briefing, what's very important is that it relates to the customer journey. Customers always want to know, what does it mean to my specific route on my trip? So while there's a lot of detail, the key piece that's always important is how do we support our customers through the journey in terms of these changes. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cripps.
Thank you, Mr. Manconi. So my brief presentation will provide an overview of transitway closures, both closures that are in place currently and what is coming up for the balance of the Confederation Line project. So moving to the next slide gives a quick snapshot. So currently in place in terms of transitway closures, way back in 2013, the Laurier-Nicholas realignment was implemented. Back in December of last year, the Booth Street was closed, and the Preston Detour was implemented at Le Breton Station. And then the big closure on June 28th of this year of the East Transitway between Herdman Station and Blair Stations. So those are the 3 currently in effect. So upcoming transitway closures for the balance of the Confederation Line project happen in four different time frames and 4 different elements shown there at the bottom of this slide. The first one is a little bit of a change from the previous schedule, and it reflects the closure between Lees and Herdman Station, and that will be in effect this December. And I'll provide more details on the rationale for that in upcoming slides. The next section that's closed after that bounces over to the Western Detour, so it's the first section of the Western Detour from Merton Street easterly to Empress, and that will happen on January 17th of 2016. That's a slight change from previous communications. It was also going to be December of this year, but working with our colleagues in OC Transpo, we have put some time between the Lees to Herdman closure and the Merton to Empress closure, just to allow for a more efficient and effective rollout of a service adjustment. So the Merton to Empress is a slight change. Going to next April of 2016 is the continuation of the Eastern Transitway closure, so that's from Lees Station northerly up to Laurier. And then finally, in June of next year, is the Tunney's Pasture end of the Western Transitway closure from Smurl to Merton. So this slide just shows a graphic of the eastern transitway closures, with the major change, as I mentioned, being that short section in purple there from Lees to Herdman, and I'll provide a bit more detail on that in the upcoming slide. And of course, the green section there completes the eastern detour next April from Lees northerly up to Laurier. So, as I mentioned, the change of the Lees to Herdman section, and originally that was scheduled for April of 2016. RTG, as part of their responsibilities for using existing structures for the Confederation line, are required to inspect structures and make sure they meet current codes, standards, service life requirements. And as part of that inspection, they have identified some upgrades that are required to the bridge over the transitway bridge over the Rideau River. So those unforeseen upgrades are required currently, or will be implemented currently once the transitway closes on December 20th. It's part of normal bridge rehabilitation. It is something that isn't time critical, but this is certainly the right time to do it before the Confederation line is implemented. So the upgrades will be done, and that bridge will provide many years of service life. And then again, the last part of that closure, again from April, or from Lees up to Laurier, happens in April 2016. So just a aerial view of the bridge in question and the section that will be closed. And again, it's the bridge will be closed this December. That will allow RTG to undertake those upgrades to the bridge between now and the spring. And then once the balance of the closure and the Eastern Transitway happens, they'll convert that over to light rail between now and spring of 2018. So that bridge in that section does contain accommodations for pedestrians and cyclists. So as a result of that closure, there will be a need for detouring the cycling path and pedestrian path. And that's a responsibility to provide that detour of RTG, and they're currently developing those plans, and we hope to roll those out shortly to the public. And finally, in terms of notification and communications on this, we have communicated with councillors, of course, affected by this change, the public at various community association meetings, and of course major stakeholders such as the University of Ottawa. And then going forward, communications will continue between my office, the rail office, and OC Transpo to continue the communications of the closures and the resulting service adjustments. And then, of course, on December 20th, the bridge will close. And that concludes my presentation. I'll turn it over to Mr. Scrimgeour.
Thanks, Steve. Sorry, a little close to the mic there. As Steve said, the transitway is closing in these phases, and we're about halfway through the list. By June of next year, all of the transitway between Tunney's Pasture and Blair is closed and remains closed for the next 2 years until the Confederation line trains are ready to accept customers. So the three things that I want to talk to you about today. First is the adjustments that we've made to address customer feedback on the changes that we made in June with the closure of the transitway from Herdman to Blair. The highlights here are that in response to customer requests, we have found that we're able to reduce travel times on eastbound express trips to Orleans in the afternoon peak period, and that we've also been able to reduce travel time for some customers who currently use Route 101 to travel east-west across town without going through downtown. Customers gave us feedback after the changes were introduced at the end of June, and based on this feedback and based also on many comments that we got from our staff and observations that we made of the way the service is operating and the way customers are using that service, we've planned and are making these improvements to begin in late December. So the first is to improve travel time in the afternoon on express trips going to Orleans. Those trips will bypass Blair Station. To this point, they've been leaving the highway, looping into Blair Station, and then picking up the transitway from that point. What they'll do in the afternoon is they'll use the bus lanes on the 174 right through Blair Road. That will save travel time of about 3 to 4 minutes per trip for about 5,000 customers each afternoon. There are some customers who now get on those buses at Blair, about 200 per day, and what they will have to do is ride the frequent service from Blair out to Jeanne d'Arc or Place d'Orléans and make the transfer to their express route there. But that combined service runs about every 2 minutes. The second is to reduce travel time for people who now use Route 101, especially people who are traveling to and from Orleans and across to areas like the Civic Hospital and Bayshore. We'll introduce a new Route 103 that'll, half the trips on Route 101 will be labeled as 103, and the 103 trips will bypass Herdman Station in both directions and will bypass Saint Laurent Station on eastbound trips like Route 91 and the express routes do. And that will provide faster travel times for about 250 customer trips a day. It'll save them 5 minutes in the morning and up to 16 minutes in the afternoon. And at other times of the day outside rush hours, Route 101 will continue to run just as it does now. So the second set of service changes that I want to talk to you about today is those associated with the closure of the transitway between Lees and Herdman, the closure that Steve talked about a few minutes ago. The highlights here are that the transitway will close between Lees and Herdman, never to reopen as a bus operation. The next time we carry customers across that bridge, it will be in trains. Lees Station and Herdman stations remain open. At Lees, it's at the upper level on Lees Avenue, the bus stop's there, and at Herdman is the current temporary platform, which continues in use until the middle of next year. The buses that now use the bridge that's closing to get in and out of downtown will be crossing the Rideau River using the bus-only lanes on Highway 417, and for most buses that means they also bypass Lees Station, but those coming from the south still serve Herdman Station. Route 95 from the east will bypass Herdman Station in both directions. We'll change Route 85 so that it runs along King Edward between downtown and Lees Station to connect the University of Ottawa main campus with their Lees campus. We'll introduce a new Route 104, which I'll show you more details on in a few slides, to continue the connection from Herdman to points to the east that Route 95 now provides. We'll make an extension to Route 106 so that people who are traveling to and from the east can connect to that route at Saint Laurent Station as well as at Herdman Station. And we're building transit priority measures on Industrial Avenue and on Riverside Drive to enhance the reliability of service through that busy section of the system. When you look at all of the customers that we carry every day, with this change, about 2% of those customers will have a faster travel time, up to 4 minutes faster. About 13% will have a longer travel time of up to 4 minutes, and that's mostly customers who are traveling to and from the south part of the city and into downtown. There's also a small number of customers who will save a transfer and a smaller number of customers who will have an additional transfer. This map shows the dashed section on the right is the section of transitway that's been closed since June. The dashed section on the left is the section that closes in December. And the dark line shows how the buses from the south will operate through Herdman Station, looping onto the highway and across and into downtown. And this diagram shows conceptually how the bus service will operate, that most of the service to and from the east, the red line at the top, will bypass Lees and Herdman and connect the east directly with downtown. The service from the south, coming up from Greenboro and Billings Bridge and places like that in purple, will go through Herdman Station and then loop onto the highway to get into downtown. The yellow line shows the new Route 104 that we'll be introducing to continue that connection for people who are traveling from the south to the east or from the east to the south. And then the dashed line shows the change to Route 85 to continue the service to Lees Station and between the two university campuses along King Edward. So going through these route by route, Route 95, as I said, will bypass Herdman Station, and that provides a quicker travel time for East End customers. With this change, Route 95 and Route 91 will be exactly the same on westbound service, bypassing Herdman and Lees. But Route 95 and Route 91 are different eastbound because Route 95 is the one that goes into Saint Laurent Station and Route 91 bypasses Saint Laurent. Customers who are traveling to or from the east, from points west of Herdman at the times that they can't choose Route 91, which means evenings and weekends, will save 2 to 4 minutes travel time. As I've said, we'll introduce the new Route 104 to continue the connection from the east to Herdman Station. And of course, Route 95 continues to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This new Route 104 that I mentioned will provide service from the east end to Herdman and to the Southeast Transitway, and it will connect to Carleton University directly. And it will run every 4 to 5 minutes at the busiest times, which is not necessarily rush hours, but it's the busiest time is class start and finish times at the university. This replaces the connection that Route 95 makes at Herdman Station, so customers at Herdman who will get to Herdman can still transfer to go east. It replaces the section of Route 104 that currently operates between Herdman and Carleton. It also replaces the current peak extensions of Route 129 that we introduced in September. These buses will serve Herdman, Saint Laurent, Blair, and Place d'Orléans stations in both directions. And we estimate that there's about 3,500 customers a day who will save a transfer at Herdman Station and will save waiting time. And Route 4 continues to operate as it does now, but only between Carleton University and downtown. So this map shows in the darker color Route 4 between Carleton and Rideau Centre, and in red the Route 104 from Carleton University along the Southeast Transitway through Billings Bridge up to Herdman, and then east along the highway towards Orleans. The next change is to improve connections between Orleans and the hospital campus by extending Route 106 so that it connects with the east-west service at Saint Laurent Station as well as at Herdman Station. Currently, it's faster to travel from Orleans to the hospital by going via Herdman Station than if the buses were to go via Saint Laurent, and that change was made in 2009. But with fewer routes going into Herdman Station, we need to provide that connection at a place that's easier for people to get to, and we can do that at Saint Laurent Station. And this will save a transfer for about 400 customer trips each day. This map shows how Route 106 will connect at Herdman Station and also at Saint Laurent Station. And of course, as always, people coming up from the south can make their connection to Route 106 at Smythe or Alicia Claudel stations as well as Herdman. Herdman Station continues to be a busy station, just not as busy as it has been. There's still a couple of dozen routes serving the station, as you can see there, and there's a list of the routes that will still be going through Herdman Station and using the Rideau River Bridge to get into downtown. So there's still a lot of bus service for customers traveling from Herdman into downtown. But with these trips that are bypassing Herdman, there will be fewer buses at Herdman. This will be a further reduction. There's been a reduction in the number of buses already with the changes that started in June, and a further reduction with these changes in December to bring the number of buses per hour down to about 250 buses an hour in the morning and 230 buses an hour in the afternoon. So that will reduce congestion at the station further and will reduce the potential for delays from the congestion. Lees Station, as I mentioned, remains open at the upper level. Route 85 will be the route that connects Lees Station with downtown via King Edward Avenue, both directions. And Route 85 frequency on this part of the route will be doubled at the busiest times so that it runs every 6 to 8 minutes instead of the current every 12 to 15, which will still operate on the rest of the route. And that'll provide more capacity and shorter waiting times. In particular, we're working with the University of Ottawa staff to ensure that we're providing sufficient capacity at the times required, especially northbound leaving Lees campus to get students back up to the main campus when their classes finish at Lees. Lees Station will also be served by the crosstown routes 6, 101, and the new 103 in both directions, and the mainline transitway routes that are going east and south, routes 91 and 95 going east, route 98 going south, will make a stop at Lees Station on their eastbound and southbound trips. And that will allow people to get to Lees Avenue and Lees campus quite quickly still on the transitway, and we can do that from now until the next section of transitway closes, when we'll have to make a change again. This map shows the different routes operating through Lees Station. In dashed red, you see the section of transitway that's closing. The purple shows how Route 85 will operate along King Edward, then through the south end of Sandy Hill, turning around at Lees Station. The green and the blue routes show Route 101, 103, and 6, the crosstown routes. And then in red, you can see how the eastbound trips on routes 91, 95, and 98 will make a stop at Lees as they loop up off the transitway and before they go onto the highway. There's a few other route changes in connection with the Lees to Herdman closure of the transitway. The West End Express routes and Route 176 from Merivale and Holland will be shortened so that they end at Mackenzie King Bridge in the morning. People who are traveling further east than Mackenzie King will transfer to another route there that continues east. Routes 41 and 43 coming up from the south will be shortened to end at Herdman Station, and about 400 customer trips a day will have an additional transfer to those many other routes that connect Herdman into downtown. Routes 114 and 192, which operate from the area south of Saint-Laurent Station, will end at Saint-Laurent Station rather than at Herdman. And Route 602, which are the trips that connect the transitway with De La Salle High School, will operate from Mackenzie King Bridge rather than from Herdman as it does now. On Industrial Avenue and on Riverside Drive, we're establishing transit priority measures to enhance the reliability of service. We're building a new bus lane on Industrial, just on the south side of the post office between Sanford Fleming and Riverside, and we've designated already a northbound bus-only receiving lane on the north side of the intersection on Riverside, north of Tremblay, as buses climb up onto the bridge to go over the highway. These changes will help buses that are going from Herdman Station to 417 get there more consistently, more reliably, without getting caught in as much traffic, and will reduce pressure on the Riverside Industrial intersection, in particular the long left turn that eastbound buses are making now when they cross Herdman Station. So the red line shows how buses that are coming from the south, for example, will come through Herdman Station, leave Herdman, and then turn left and loop up onto Terminal, south on Sanford Fleming, west on Industrial, and back north on Riverside. And most of that travel will be in bus-only lanes. Here's a diagram of how the new bus lane will look when it's built on the north side of Industrial between Sanford Fleming and Riverside, and construction has just started on that. And this is a diagram to show how buses can continue through the intersection. That's a lane that's normally only used for right-turning traffic, but buses will be able to continue straight and then merge in with other traffic when they get up to the area that's shaded in yellow there. That's in place already, has been for a week or so, and is already helping out Route 9, the one route that goes that way. As Steve mentioned, we're meeting with stakeholders through the RIO's consultation process. We met with the University of Ottawa and several community associations representing the area around Lees. The university brought to us their concern that there wouldn't be enough time for students to change between classes at their Lees campus and the main campus. And so we've made changes there in consultation with them, extending Route 85 to Lees Station, and having routes 91, 95, and 98 also make the stop at Lees Station. This page is a summary of all of those route adjustments that I went through. Just brings it all into one page. And here's a summary of the travel time changes that I described, listed by route. So then the third set of route changes are those related to the closure of the transitway on the west side of downtown between Merton and Empress, and these start in mid-January. The highlights here are that the transitway closes between Merton Street, which is about halfway between Bayview Station and Tunney's Pasture Station, and Empress Avenue, just east of LeBreton Station, next to Good Companions. Bayview Station and LeBreton Station are affected. They both remain open, but the platforms are relocated to Albert Street. And along with this, the Trillium Line platform at Bayview Station is also being relocated a little further south to be closer to the new bus platforms on Albert Street and to be away from the construction of the Confederation Line, part of Bayview Station. That platform shift is happening in November. Along Scott and Albert, the buses will use the new bus-only lanes, which have been under construction for a few months and under design for a couple of years. There's been helpful ideas from the community, many which went into the design of the bus lanes, but also we incorporated some suggestions from the community into our service plan, and two of the ideas that are helping to reduce the number of buses operating in that part of Albert and Scott are that express trips coming from the east will end at Bay Station rather than Le Breton Station, and customers who are transferring to go over to Gatineau can do so downtown onto a Route 27 or a 40 or to an STO service rather than making their connection at Le Breton Station. And also that buses that are out of service that are moving between downtown and the West End will go via the Parkway rather than via Albert and Scott. In this case, out of all the customers that we carry every day, about 14% will have a longer travel time of about 3 minutes, and these are mostly customers traveling to or from the west and southwest parts of the city. And you'll remember that the changes in June affected primarily the fraction of customers that come to and from the east. The changes in December, about the same fraction, the customers who are traveling to or from the south. And this is the first change that has the similar magnitude of change affecting the customers traveling to and from the west. This map shows the section of the transitway that's closing from Merton Street through Bayview Station, through Le Breton Station to Empress Avenue, and shows where Bayview Station and the relocation of Le Breton Station to the corner of Preston and Albert. This diagram shows that there is really almost no change to the connectivity of the transit routes. The bus routes are the same, they're just running on different streets. So here's a summary of all the East End peak routes that will end at Bay in the morning. It's in the afternoon, they'll still start at Le Breton just as they do now. The West End routes that will be operating via Scott and Albert rather than via the transitway. As I said earlier, the morning trips will end at Mackenzie King Station, and the afternoon trips will start just as they do now at Campus Station, but we recommend that customers who are transferring to those do so at Mackenzie King where there's more room. And the transitway routes that continue to operate east-west through downtown will be running on Scott and Albert, as I said, between Merton and Empress. And here's a summary of the travel time changes, 2 to 3 minutes for people traveling to and from the west. So there's been extensive consultation with stakeholders in this area too. Two of the changes that have come from that discussion, one was to add a bus stop at Bayview Road for transitway service, just near the Tom Brown Arena, making it easier for people who are in that part of Mechanicsville and that part of Hintonburg to get to downtown. So Route 95 will be added to the stops that Route 16 makes at Bayview Road. As I mentioned earlier, there were suggestions from the community about how to reduce the number of buses using Scott and Albert, and that's been done by shortening up the express routes from the east in the morning and also negotiating access to the federal roads, the Parkway and the roads through Tunney's Pasture, so that the out-of-service buses can go around that way. So in summary, these changes take place on Sunday, December 20th, just before Christmas, and Sunday, January 17th, in mid-January. We will be advising customers starting now, but the big information push comes in mid-November. And the key messages that we're giving to our customers are that these changes are coming, they may affect your travel, and you can get more information at octranspo.com. As we did in June, our principles are to make people aware of the change, to speak to people as they're traveling so that they hear it when they're making that trip, and always to remind them that the reason we're doing this is for many long-term benefits resulting from the construction of the Confederation Line. And we'll be speaking to customers through many, many channels. We'll be posting information at stations and in bus shelters, issuing a new system map and putting it up at shelters all across the city, putting out leaflets on board buses, speaking to customers at our sales offices, reaching out to customers at stations and telling people via social media where we'll be. We'll be making onboard audio announcements, speaking to people through our customer contact center, through our websites, through employers and other major destinations' email systems, and we'll be doing some radio ads and some local and regional newspaper ads. And this diagram shows how we start now with the basic information, the basic awareness, but by mid-November, carrying through into late January, we'll be providing that information to customers in all of those ways. One of the other things that people should be interested to know about is that for most special events, transit service remains the same, but we'll be operating on slightly different routes where the transitway is closed. Service to and from Lansdowne, Canadian Tire Centre, and the other events downtown, very minor changes. There will be some changes next year at Blues Fest, as we'll have to arrange a more convenient place to pick up customers after the event, because the new LeBreton station is a longer walk distance away from their site than LeBreton station has been in the past. Our staff are continuing to meet regularly with all of the agencies responsible for incident management and response to delays. That's us, Public Works, both in traffic management and traffic operations, our colleagues at the Rail Implementation Office, and our colleagues also at Ottawa Police Service, the OPP, and the MTO. And that incident response has been working very, very well in the first few months since the June service changes began and buses started operating in such number on the provincial highway. And I will turn it back to John for a few comments.
Thank you, Pat. Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, the last few slides are just reminders that everything that we've planned assumes average conditions. We will have incidents, we'll have accidents, we'll have snowstorms, we'll have traffic jams and so forth, but as Pat mentioned, we've got the integrated response team that can make adjustments on that. But the additional travel times that we've shown you are with average and normal conditions. So just a reminder on that, and we're happy to take any questions now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manconi. I do have a list. Councillor Eglai, please.
Thank you. My first question is around slide number 12 from Mr. Scrimsher's presentation, where you say same as you're talking about Route 95, same as Route 91 for westbound service, customer demand will spread evenly. What does that mean? Are there more buses, more passengers, less passengers? I'm not sure what that phrase means.
We've seen since the changes went in June that many customers from the East End are preferring Route 91 to Route 95 because it provides a faster trip downtown. And in some cases, that's resulted in the trips on Route 91 being busier than the trips on Route 95. Because Route 95 will get people downtown just as quickly as Route 91, people who are traveling west won't need to choose anymore between them, and they'll be able to use either route, shortening up their waiting time and the travel time for people who are on the 95s.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that clarification. Now, the next question I'm just going to pull up here is on route or slide number 20, and it's specific to the 176. So you're saying the 176 will stop at Mackenzie King Bridge. And then I think in your presentation you had indicated that there will be an additional transfer point for people on the 176. Is that to a fixed designated route, or is that to a variety of routes, or how is that going to work?
Most trips on Route 176 from the south end at Tunney's Pasture Station. But during the morning rush hour, some of those trips are extended through to LeBreton or through to downtown. The trips that go to downtown currently go to Herdman Station, where people can transfer to any route that they like, or they can walk to their destinations downtown. Those trips on Route 176 that go through to downtown will end at Mackenzie King. So people who use those to go to work downtown will see no change at all. But people who use those to transfer to go south or go east should make that transfer at downtown rather than at Herdman as they do now.
No, and I appreciate that, but is there going to be a designated route to transfer to, or is it, if you're following, is there going to be a replacement for the 176, or are we going to work with existing buses that already do that route?
Because there's about 40 different bus routes that go down that street, and people from Route 176, like every one of the other 40 routes, often transfer between them. They'll still have the ability to transfer to all those routes. There's a little, depends where they're going. If they're going to Herdman Station, there's many, many routes to transfer to. If they're going to other specific locations in the south end or in the east end, they'll transfer to the route that gets them straight there. But every route going east stops at Mackenzie King Bridge, so that, there will be no difficulty to transfer to any route.
And my final question is for Mr. Manconi, and he got to it ahead of me, but I just want a little bit more clarification. You've given us, additional 2 or 3 minutes or what have you for the trips, and you talk about average time. Is that average year-round time, or is that average springtime? I guess what I'm trying to get at is we all know in the winter things tend to slow down, and not just because of a snowstorm, but just because. I think everybody understands the snowstorm piece, but I'm trying to get to the number you gave us of 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 minutes. Is that based on a year-round travel time, or does it take into account that things just generally slow a little bit in the winter?
It's year-round average, but I think what's important to your question is what are the mitigation measures we have in place to minimize things that can impact that. So we're working with Mr. Wiley's team on enhanced snow removal and salting operation for Herdman and other key points, because, the Transitway is the second highest service level road in the system after 174. Mm-hmm. So we're working with him on how to enhance the service on that. But it's not just at Herdman, it's also other locations, Scott Street and so forth. And then also transit priority or signal queuing enhancements across the board on we've mapped out every single signal. So it's average around the year, but then there's a bunch of mitigation things that if things start to change temperature-wise or SENS night or all those things, we've got a wide range of scenarios mapped out on that. The key thing that will throw us for a loop is if there's a major accident or a major shutdown of a major roadway that's part of the system, then we've got to look at alternatives. Having said that, the OPP has been very cooperative. They've worked with us and with OPS to go to an enhanced response if there's an incident on any of those bus lanes or non-bus lanes. So they're very, very quick to respond and also to move the cars off the roadway so that we can get our lanes back.
Okay, and that leads to my last question. So we know we're going to be sending during the detour more buses down Scott Street than we normally do. And to your point, if there's a major accident on Scott Street, we don't have the Transitway, we don't have Scott Street. Where do we go, or do we know?
So Mr. Charter and Mr. Wiley's team have alternate routes. They would disperse those bus routes all over through the system. And then also make sure that OPS or whoever's responding to that incident can give us a lane in each direction, certainly in the peak direction, to get traffic through.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Wilkins. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a few questions. To clear, the people coming from the west are that go to the Civic Hospital campus. These are the ones I hear from sometime. They found it a bit difficult with the change that happened last year. Now you're planning in December, I guess it is, to cut off all the express routes from the west end at Mackenzie King. So anybody going past that, whether it's to the University of Ottawa or to the campus, have to transfer. But the 106 that goes to the campus, the hospitals, doesn't start from Mackenzie King. So are they going to have to now do 2 transfers instead of 1?
Depending on where they're traveling from, yes, they could.
Are they coming in an express route from Canada? They're going to have to get off Mackenzie King.
Take the next bus to Herdman and transfer to 106 there.
They've complained about the transfer times and some problems. I think some of those have been worked out, but I think there's going to have to be some watching of that. There are a fair number of people nurses particularly have to get there for particular times. And they go on the early buses, which means they're kind of tight already because the first express buses don't leave till around 6, and that gives them an hour to get there for 7, but they're having trouble making it.
So, Mr. Chair, what we do the first number of weeks is we watch every single route through our GPS system and whether they're running on time, and also the transfer points, and we have staff there monitoring. So like the major detours in June, we tracked every single route through those detours, and we debrief every single day on what is happening AM and PM peak. And so if there's any of those transfers that are looking tight and so forth, we'll make some adjustments.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I just was wondering, if all the buses are ending on the bridge, how do you get them to turn around?
Mr. Chair, most of those buses don't turn around. Most of the buses that end at the bridge continue out, that currently end at Herdman, continue out to the east end to do their next trip in. So a trip that comes from, for instance, Barrhaven and ends at Herdman will usually go out to Greenboro or go out to Orleans to do its next trip back. For those buses that do need to turn around, which is a very small number, they'll use the roads around Nicholas Street and the ramps to the highway.
Which are usually pretty congested, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that works, because the last express buses and things tend not to go. The other one, when they're coming from the east, you're going to have them ending at the Bay Station. The 93 now starts at the Breton, and I know what was happening on that, the extra ones that come from downtown. If somebody is coming from Orleans that works in Canada, that's a one transfer, and it's quite convenient for them. But now they're going to have to. Could you start the 93s at Bay? I mean, because they're usually the ones coming from the east that are changing to a 93 to go out west.
Mr. Chair, with the limited capacity of the downtown streets and then the even more limited capacity of the downtown streets during Confederation Line construction, I'm afraid that it's not possible for us to run more, to have more buses start in downtown. We have to. We are finishing some buses in downtown, but whenever we're starting buses, they're starting out on the edges of town at places like Campus.
Even though they're actually the same bus. I mean, right now I've been told that almost all of those 93s are express buses that come from Orleans that change to a 93 at Le Breton. Because otherwise people are going to have to get to Bay, transfer to another bus to get to Le Breton, and then transfer either there or further on to a 93 to get out to Canada, and that's going to slow people. Every transfer makes an issue, and they don't run that frequently.
Mr. Chair, we'll certainly look at the exact schedules for the trips that are ending at Bay and continuing on as Route 93 to make sure that we're providing the best service we can for those specific trips. But I don't have the details here of how the new schedules are prepared and which trips are linked to which trips.
Yeah, but if it is possible to change them at that point, because it's the same bus, it would be, I think, for a lot of people, one transfer is a heck of a lot better than two. The other question is, I hope you've taken into account the ones that are deadheading back on the Parkway are fine, but as you probably know, if you've ever, I tend to avoid using the Parkway because as soon as I get near downtown, I spend 20 minutes getting into even 3 or 4 blocks sometimes, and the buses are going to get caught in that. And if they're supposed to turn into another route, that will make them late for the other route. Have you taken all of that into account? Because it's bad on regular days, and on other days it can be horrendous.
Yes, we have, and a reminder that they're deadheading on an off-peak direction, so that we'll have one spot that we're watching closely, but it should be fine. But we have taken all that into consideration. Okay,
good. One of the things that could help a bit, you're working on the extension from Bayshore to Moody, or the city is right now, and they're not working on it, seems terribly quickly. And the earlier it could get going, that would take off 3 or 4 minutes of travel time coming in, which then would make people less unhappy about the extra time as they're getting in. Is there, and I had asked this before about if they were saying it wouldn't be finished till 2017, but if it could be finished at least at the end of 2016, so that winter we start having that service, I think it would improve people's, we wouldn't get so many difficult emails.
I would be happy to pass that on to Mr. Knoll and Mr. Moser. They're in charge of the construction of that, and they can certainly give you an update on as to when that will occur.
Yeah, and the other one is on all the communications. We've had a lot with community associated things in the East End. There has been absolutely nothing done in the far west for what the impact is on the express routes. I don't know if a lot of people realize their express routes are going to stop at Mackenzie King Bridge right now. So when you're doing all of the information things you're sending out, which are great, I think there wasn't in there information to councillors to provide to our community. I'm quite happy to do it that way. So we need to I guess if they actually take the takeoffs off the buses, they'll find that out, but that's usually pretty close to the change time, and I'd like to start working on now to get them prepared so that they don't get a surprise at the end.
Absolutely. It started last week with you all received your first information kit, but I can assure you, Councillor, you're getting a lot more. And just a reminder that the messages that we had in June, we are going to do the same thing on the buses, and they're route specific. So if you're on a particular route, you will hear a message that this route will change on December 20th. Go to octransfer.com or visit us and so forth. But you as a councillor will get lots of information that you can disseminate.
I think those ones right on the bus are the most useful, frankly.
Okay.
It's nice that you now can do messages there. And I think, I appreciate the detail that you're giving out and all this. Is a very difficult kind of a change. I can see that. And it's a long-term one. And I do appreciate the work you're doing on it. And the adjustments you made in June showed you how much you are able to fix things, if I could, or improve things, is the best thing as it goes along. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor, for questions, and I can assure you that by the end, you will be receiving complaints about how often your residents are hearing about the changes. So I don't think you're going to have to worry about that too much. Councillor Leeper, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. As I know you're aware, the residents in Hintonburg, Mechanicsville, Wellington Village have some particular concerns around the residential nature of Scott Street for the detour. I'll leave most of those to the working group that we've established. Thank you very much for your upcoming participation in there. There are some interesting questions, tricky challenges, for example, at Merton Street, which is a one-way heading north. It's where you're going to be cutting the buses out of the transitway in the first phase. It'll be interesting to see how eastbound or right-turning traffic from Merton gets across the bus lane, even as buses are also coming east trying to get to the inside lane. There's going to be an interesting crossover there. It's going to require a bit of an accommodation on the part of both drivers and of your operators. I'm wondering, how are you going to communicate with your drivers about the need for some accommodation for some of those residents who are going to need to cut across the buses only lane in order to get into their driveways, in order to get into their garages, as people are trying to turn eastbound coming out of those northbound streets? How are they going to get across those bus lanes? What kind of sensitivity training can you do for your drivers to ensure that they're giving our residents as much quarter as possible?
So what we do, Councillor, is we, like our customers, we have an information process for our union and our operators. And our operators are given not just only maps, but they're also given visuals. And if we get that opened early, we actually take them on driving tours. And all that sensitivity that you're talking about, the watch items, the changes and so forth, they've done it. We did that in the East End when those detours, we were giving them a couple of days earlier. We actually had all our operators on our buses, and we were going through the detours physically so they could see it firsthand without a customer load. Okay. We also did very innovative things. We got a GoPro, put it on a vehicle, drove the detours end to end, and we put it in our driver's lounge. They see that. It's continuously playing and so forth. There are a bunch of innovative things that we've done to not only just orient but also engage and bring the overarching safety principle to our operators on that. And I can assure you we'll do the same with this. And then the other piece that I add to that is that with our traffic management partners, who are world-class transportation engineers, they're very conscientious of your concerns and the community concerns there, and we're in lockstep with them in terms of the situations there. For those, for the residents, and I commend the job that you've done. I'm one of those who heard the message on the bus pretty frequently about your route may change. For the non-riders who are in Kitchissippi Ward, who are in Wellington Village, who are in Hintonburg, Mechanicsville,
I've got decent channels to reach out to them with what's coming on, but it can only reach, a few thousand people across the ward. Is there help that you can provide me to talk to residents about what's upcoming, about the very specific geographic considerations around the bus detour on Scott?
Yes, we'll give you what you need, but the other thing you can do is you can speak to Sue Jones. So she chairs the Ottawa on the Move project, which is the broader citywide communication on all traffic changes. And so if you want to do broader push out of information, certainly Sue and her team do a phenomenal job of communicating the wide-reaching changes, because you want to get to everyone. You want to get to cyclists, pedestrians, motorists, and transit users.
Great. And I'll look forward to some more specific considerations being brought up at the monthly meetings. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Councillor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the briefing. Just a couple of, I think, pretty short questions. The first is, there was no mention of Tremblay/train station. Is the service there? I don't remember the sub number unaffected in the new plan.
There's no change to the current service.
Okay, thanks. Just a question, I think following up a little bit on Councillor Wilkinson's question. The eastbound, at one point on slide 6, you talk about the 101 service from Orléans going all the way west, continuing to Bayshore. And then later on in the presentation, you say that all westbound express buses from the east are going to stop at Bay Station. I'm just trying to understand. So will some routes continue on all the way to Bayshore, or what's the distinction for which westbound buses stop at Bay and which ones continue?
The buses that will stop at Bay will be the express routes, so the routes that are in the 20, 30, and 40 number series.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The ones that, I think my mic, there we go. The ones that are numbered in the 20, 30, and 40 number series will end at Bay. The rapid transit routes, like those in the 80s and 90s, continue right through.
They're unaffected. Okay, great. And then the new 103 service, is that simply replacing some of the 101s? Is it just a matter of taking some 101s and turning them into 103s?
Mr. Chair, yes. The current service on the 101, half the trips start in Orleans, and the other half of the trips start at Saint Laurent. The half that start in Orleans will be relabeled as 103 and will bypass Herdman Station on the westbound trips, and will bypass Herdman and Saint Laurent both on their eastbound trips in the afternoon.
And then the 101, the 101 that goes from, I thought it was the 103 that went along Catherine and Carling?
The current service on Catherine and Carling is Route 101, and in future, half the trips that are currently 101 will be 101, and the other half will be 103 during rush hours. And the 101 continues to run all day long, 6 days a week.
So the new part of that is simply that you're relabeling some 101s to 103. Is that the only difference?
That's correct. The ones that are labeled 103 are the ones that will get people there 5 to 16 minutes faster.
And they'll avoid the downtown?
They all avoid the downtown. Yeah. Route 101, 103, and 6 are the 3 crosstown routes.
Time saving comes from avoiding Saint Laurent and avoiding Herdman.
Great, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Nussbaum. Are there any other questions or comments related to the presentation? Thank you very much. We received the update. Thank you very much, Mr. Manconi and team. We have no other agenda items. There are no in-camera items. Inquiries. Commissioner Mallow, are you presenting? Commissioner Mallow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My colleague, Commissioner Crew, and I would like to co-file an inquiry on the subject of low-income transit access. And specifically, all of the councillors around this table will know that there are some citizens in Ottawa that spend the majority of their income on food and shelter. So they live below the low-income cutoff line as defined by Statistics Canada. As such, for them, public transit is a luxury that they can rarely afford. Since mobility is an enabler for economic prosperity, and that two of the city's goals is to foster economic development and social well-being, the provision of a low-income transit access seems to be in the public interest. We would therefore like the transit staff to investigate other transit facilities that already have a program, access to transit for low-income citizens, investigate the level of subsidizations offered in those jurisdictions, advise on the feasibility and considerations, including financial considerations, of implementing a similar program in Ottawa, advise on the amount currently transferred from the Community and Social Services budget to transit services to support people living in poverty, and finally, provide a Transit Commission with a low-income transit access implementation options to include an option that could be quickly implemented and that would leverage existing excess capacity in the transit system, essentially apportioning empty seats. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Mallow, and those are very important questions. I know we'll work hard to get a response as fast as we can. Manage. There's no other business. Do we have adjournment? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll see you at